Hi, everyone. Welcome to All Things Dogs 4th of July Safety Pets. We need to protect our pets during this time. This is actually one of the scariest holidays that our pets have. There's certain things we can do. Today I've got Jen, who's a dog walker and trainer here in Monrovia, California. And I've been hanging out with Jen since probably for like 3 months now here on Clubhouse, and just really adore her mission and her passion for taking care of pets. And then I have Sarah, who's a dog trainer here in Southern California as well, down in San Diego area. And she works a lot with puppies, and she has online courses, and she really helps you set your puppy up to win for the life of your dog and you. With that, I would love for Jen to say hello. Hello, Jen.
Good morning, Michael and Sarah. My name is Jen. I'm in Southern California, dog trainer, dog walker, and pet sitter. And I've been in the pet space for about 30 years, and love talking about the whole 4th of July subject. It's the big one. So let's get going and talk about all the safety.
Hopefully we'll be able to leave this room without a bang, or with a bang. Sarah.
That was cute, Michael.
Ba-da-bump.
My name is Sarah. I'm a certified dog trainer in San Diego. I work with a lot of new pet owners, from puppies to rescues of all ages, helping them get prepared for success long-term and having fun while training.
Well, I'm just excited about this topic today. You guys being trainers, let's break this down from a trainer's point of view. What can we do, Jen, to keep our pets safe for the 4th of July?
Well, the list is extremely long, but it's very simple. Making sure that they have a safe place, that isn't anywhere close to firework noises, if possible. Collar, tag, microchip, all the things, having all that information updated. The list is so long. I'm going to just pass it over to Sarah.
I love
and
that.
Let's get started there. Yeah.
Sarah.
Hey, yeah, that's such a great, I think that's one of the biggest things, Jen, that we miss is identification, and their tags being up to date. You don't know how many dogs have wound up on my property without identification. Just 2 years ago, I had a dog end up on my property that just had a collar on and nothing else, and wasn't even chipped when I took it to the vet. So really, really important. You guys still have time, and they have plenty of, I think there's a group that goes around for free chipping. If anything, it's really low cost, but don't let the obvious get away from you. Make sure that their tags are up to date and that the chip information is even up to date. If you've moved, make sure that you call in that chip information for them. The other thing that I love with regards to collars, now a lot of people may not actually have dogs wear collars throughout the day. If you have a multi-dog household, you might not have your dogs in collars, but you know what? This is one day of the year that I would probably put a collar on with their tags and identification. The other thing I love to do is have those little blinky lights. You can get them on Amazon. They're just little push button LED lights. I used to have a collar that was an LED collar for my dog, but that's really great if you are out with your dog and maybe they get distracted and cruise away in the dark in your yard or something. You can easily see them, or if you're walking them, it's just a great added tool. Leading into that, then I'll pass the mic back to you, Michael, is make sure that even if you're comfortable with your dog off leash going potty in the evening during this event, and the night of 4th of July where there's lots and lots of noises, you might consider walking your dog to go potty on leash. And again, it's just an added layer of management and safety. So back to you, Michael.
And I think that's so important, Sarah, because I was just thinking about Jen, you're in Monrovia, Sarah, you're down near San Diego, and you're in two different places, just like I am. I'm kind of like in the same place Jen is. We're in the middle of a city, and already the 4th of July has happened. It started. I hear bangs. Sometimes I'm like, do we duck on that noise or do we just look in the sky? Because you don't know what's going off. And my neighbor has a dog, and every time one of those bangs go off, I just count the seconds until the dog starts freaking out. Jen, Because you're in Monrovia, you're probably experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. Are you hearing fireworks during the day right now when you're on your walks?
Not during the day, but like early evening, even before it gets dark, they start and they go until 2 or 3 in the morning. And we also have the Irwindale Speedway, which is down the street a few miles, but they do fireworks on the weekends this time of year. And it's almost every weekend. And some of the booms are so loud, even though it's far away, we can still hear it and kind of feel it. So yeah, we're getting it.
How about you, Sarah, where you are? You seem like you're like in a wide open space with land around your house. And I would think that the 4th of July is going to happen on the 4th of July and not necessarily like we're experiencing it in our cities. What's happening in your city?
That's a good question, Michael. We have a lot of booms happening around us throughout the year because I live close to Camp Pendleton, and they have a lot of fire practice up there doing their bomb stuff. I don't really know what the terminology is, to be honest, but there's a lot of activity going on up there. We do have lots of opportunities to help desensitize our dogs. But, I think because we have areas of San Diego with large open spaces, the 4th of July events don't just happen on one evening. We have residual leading up to and after having small little bits of fireworks go off around town. The young kids that think it's funny to be unsafe with fireworks going off in their backyard. So that's another tip and reminder, just to make sure that you're keeping your ears and your eyes open for the sounds to continue, not just on that one evening, but there are always some residual effects thereafter. So.
Jen, as you're working with your clients' dogs, are you seeing a level of anxiety happen within them right now, or just overall from the pandemic? What's going on? And do you work with them to desensitize them from these noises? Do you help your clients?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it, especially in the last year, is that we don't really know the dogs that we're working with yet. We're still trying to get to know them because they may be new to the family. And so we are being extra cautious. We don't know if they're going to react, right? So it could be a car backfire too. So any noise that could potentially spook a dog, we have to be hyper vigilant about their safety even before we leave the house. So, like Sarah was saying, if you only put a collar on your dog one day a year, make it like 4th of July or New Year's Eve or something, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe 2 days a year. But it's kind of the same for us. Like anytime we take a dog out of a house, we have collar, and if they wear a harness, then we clip the harness to the collar for extra safety, so they can't back out of the collar and the harness at the same time. It's pretty physically impossible to do that. So we just take extra safety precautions, especially for the new dogs that we're still getting to know. But any dog can spook from a backfire or a firework. So just as desensitization at home, regardless, if you think your dog might spook or you don't know, or maybe your dog is, pretty bomb proof in a way. I hate to say that word, but I've got a pretty good handle on loud noises with my dogs. But if there's a backfire close or a firework around the corner, and I have Ryder out, who's my 6.5-year-old, perfectly fine with loud noises, gunshots around the corner. He's heard from, when we were staying in San Diego near a gun range. So he's good, but if there's something that's super close to him, of course it's going to freak him out or hurt his ears. So we just always have to be prepared. And I think that's the bottom line on all noises like that.
Sarah, when you're working with your clients' dogs and let's talk about desensitization to the dog, is how do you start? What do you do? What's your go-to? I think we're going to have Jen. You're cutting out. Jen, let's jump back to you real quick while Sarah gets into a better area. Do you have a set schedule with your clients when you walk their dogs? How does that work when we're dealing with fireworks?
Well, I think every dog walker and pet sitter has their own schedule that works for their company. For us, we typically will walk from 7 to 10 in the morning, and then 12 to 2 in the afternoon, and then 4 to 7 in the evening, weather permitting. But for 4th of July, that whole, like the week before, the weekend of 4th of July, and the week after 4th of July, we are hyper vigilant about making sure that we get inside and we're done before the sun sets, because that's typically when things start to get more intense. And it really literally is like all the time, right? So just getting them out before dark is what we recommend and what we do as a company. But every dog walker is going to do something different.
Yeah. So Sarah, are you back? Maybe.
I hope so.
I think so.
Am I here? Sorry. You were asking a question. I'm like, right when I knew I was going to lose service. So going back to the desensitization, I was just going to say, Jen made a good point of there's a lot of dogs that we don't even know necessarily how they're going to do because it's their first 4th of July, right? We've just brought them into our home in the last year. Maybe they're new puppies. So I always love to be proactive in general day to day and training our dogs to, hear noises and have good associations with those noises, no matter really if you think that they're going to have a negative experience with it, just be proactive in creating it as a positive. And I often will even use like a phrase that's like, what was that? And give a treat. What was that? Give a treat. And so you're starting to condition this phrase is always going to be followed by something good, something reassuring, so the dog can quickly recover if it is something that's a little tougher. But as far as desensitization with any sound, whether it's a doorbell or a door knock or a fireworks sound or a car backfiring, you can actually practice controlled setups where you've got that sound, whether it's a recording, something on YouTube, sometimes recording your own doorbell or having a friend proactively practice with you. Again, this is not for overexposure. It's not about overexposing the dog to constant noise to hope that they get over it. That's making it worse. So you want to take small little sessions, maybe just 2 to 3 repetitions of very low decimals of this sound and pair it as a good experience. And that means using their primary reinforcer, which is going to be food, so that they are motivated to go, oh, when I hear that sound, something good happens. And we're watching their nonverbal body language to make sure that we're not adding additional stress that's not necessary. So whether that's duration of the exposure or the sound, the level, or even the proximity if you're doing something visually. That makes sense.
I've heard this before, and what's your thoughts on this? I've heard where people will actually play fireworks on their television, like you said, at a very low decimal at first, and just for a short period of time, and then slowly increase that. Have you ever done anything like that, Sarah?
Yeah, and I do that with doorbells all the time. You ever watch like Friends and somebody rings the doorbell, a TV show? So you can actually record a show and control playback, that particular scene to work on desensitization. So yeah, it's a great idea. I think the missing link is you've got to pair it with a food reward to create that positive association. Otherwise, overexposure. It's like throwing a jar of spiders in my lap and hope that I'm going to be okay with it. That's not how they're going to learn. So.
I'm going to go back to Jen real quick because I wanted to touch on what she was talking about. You were talking about the collar and the harness, and I love that you mentioned that to wear both, because a lot of times we see where animals actually skip out of their collar during an excitement or something distracting, and they'll actually pull out of it. And I love that. Do you pass that information on to your clients, and do they feel like, oh, I don't need to do that? What's your experience with that?
Yeah. So, it's individual per dog, and not every dog needs a harness. But I do think that every dog needs ID. And if the only way to get ID comfortably on a dog is with a harness, then go for it. Just make sure it's fitting correctly. Some dogs can't wear collars. Some dogs can't wear harnesses. So it's really individual. But whatever you choose to use, make sure it's properly fitting so that you can't fit more than 3 fingers between the collar and the neck. And same thing with the harness. It needs to not slip over their whole body. They shouldn't be able to get out of their harness. That's a safety thing. And if you can put a collar and harness on your dog, then I do recommend both and connecting the two with a carabiner. That's literally the one tool that we've used for 30 some years to keep all of the pets in our care safe when they're outside.
Which makes complete sense. And you guys keep talking about this. So let's talk about this, about making sure the chip is updated. I found that the same thing with my dog when I had him chipped, is that when I would move, and I'll be honest about this, I was a lazy pet parent at the time and I didn't update the information. How often do people really do update their information? What's your experience with that, Sarah?
No, I'm not really well versed on how often people update. I mean, my rule of thumb is make sure that if you move, you update your chip information. If you change your phone number, update your chip information. So if so many people move. Gosh, I remember when I moved, I forgot for like a year to update my driver's license address. I mean, so let's get on it, people.
And that's what I'm talking about, Sarah. It takes us that time to go update our own driver's license. So where does people find time to update their chips? Can we do that on the internet, Jen?
You can update it within, a few seconds just by going on the microchip website. And, like AKC has a AKC Reunite or Unite program. Anyway, so yeah, there's so many ways to update it, and just go online, or you can call the company, wherever your chip company may be, or whoever's the database behind the chip company. Definitely important. And, everybody's required to have microchips to get their dog license now, I think, in most places. So it's pretty widely known that dogs should be microchipped, cats too. So, yeah.
Well, I know a lot of breeders do that automatically when they, have a litter of pups. Before they let the pups go, they get them microchipped. Are there many companies out there, Sarah, Jen?
Well, there's Home Again and Avid. I don't really know the other companies out there, but I mean, every vet has microchips. Every rescue, every shelter not rescue, but they all microchip everybody. And if you get a dog from a breeder who's not microchipped, not the breeder, but the dog, then, first thing you want to do is get that puppy microchipped, get it under your name. That could save its life one day. So I wanted to quickly go back, if it's okay, to go back to what Sarah was talking about, desensitization, because I think that's like one of the most important things that we can discuss, and just making sure that we're doing it right. And making sure that the volume is really, 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 really low so that we can barely hear it. Because our dogs, their ears work more than ours do, or, much better than ours do. So I think it's just really important to go back to that. I don't know if Sarah's around to continue on that.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point, because as we know, people are last minuters when it comes to holidays, and I love everybody that's here listening today. That means they're taking it seriously and they're wanting to do best by their dog to help them set up for success on the 4th of July. So high clapping for you guys here. Thank you. But I will say, if you're just not sure how your dog's going to do and you haven't had time to practice desensitization properly, I think one of the most important things that even do regardless on the 4th of July is to find ways to include calmness in your dog's environment and to drown out the noises in the evening so that they're not distracted or bothered by those sounds as much as possible. And it can be simple things like getting a box fan and turning on a box fan in the room that your dog is going to be in. It can be turning on Alexa and asking her to play some light classical calming music, or turning on your TV to a channel if you're not going to be home. By the way, leave your dog at home. I mean, that's the most important thing. This is not a time to take your dog out. You've got a new 6-month-old puppy and you're so excited you want to take him out and show him off to everybody on the 4th of July parade day. It's just not, it's not the day. That's something that we want to work on building up to. But drowning out the noises is a great way to help your dog decompress, as well as managing access to the flashing lights. If you are nearby a place that's going to have a fireworks show, which is another thing you might want to look up, is go online. Things are open up here in California, and there's going to be fireworks shows here. So if you can, Google your local firework areas so you know if there are any nearby, it might behoove you to make sure that your drapes and your blinds are closed and you're giving your dog a really nice, safe place to retreat with that music, as well as, something that's going to have some white noise effect. In addition to that, Jen, as was called the queen of frozen treats yesterday, but Jen can talk some great tips on things to prepare for your dog to add into that safety zone along with the music. Jen, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So, licking, chewing, digging, foraging, all those things are super calming for our dogs. And it's a way that they can do these things on their own, and try to figure out, how to get things out of toys or enrichment boxes or all those kinds of things. Yeah, like freezing things is really good. If our dogs are already used to those things, that's what we want to do, right? Like, so starting slow, introducing like some peanut butter in a Kong, see if they can get that out first, and then moving on to maybe putting something else in there or freezing the peanut butter and seeing if they can work that out. And starting super slow, I think, is really important on all these kind of licking things and chewing things and enrichment activities, which we do have the Enrichment Challenge Facebook group if anybody wants to get in on that. There's plenty of ideas on ways to, build these things for our dogs to keep them busy and foraging and sniffing and all that kind of stuff. So freezing things, stuffing different treats in topples or rumbles from West Paw, using slow feeders. You can freeze those as well. Ice cube trays. Sarah's got some amazing the water bottle ice cube trays, which are kind of cool. Those can be kind of interesting. Just freezing anything like with some goat's milk or bone broth or, some Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt or kefir, anything that is safe for dogs in moderation, and freezing those things, adding some extra ingredients like blueberries and strawberries, all those things, anything safe for dogs, we can give those to them and prepare those things in advance of any kind of loud noises.
Well, along with that, Jen, I know you do a lot of work with sniffing and nose games and all that. Would you do that during the day, work them out, or really work with your dog during the day so they are a little tired at night?
Well, I'm going to probably defer to Sarah on the second half of the answer. But, for us, like, we need dogs to be tired in the evening. So, yeah, like anything that we can do throughout the day to get them up to that point where they're really just ready for bed at like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever it is, that would be helpful without running them into the ground. We don't want to completely exhaust them because that also changes their frame of mind as well. And sometimes they can get, upset or, like a little bit. Puppies tend to get real bitey and mouthy when they're overtired and they get a little cranky. Love to see what Sarah has to say on the amount of energy that we want to expend with our dogs during the day.
Well, before we jump to Sarah, I want to ask you, because it's on my list, you always have these great references and great products. What about Thunder Coats?
Yeah, honestly, I have mixed feelings on the compression items, just because some dogs get too hot in them and I've seen them overheat. If they're not being closely monitored. And we have a couple clients who say, just put a Thunder shirt on the dog, they'll be fine. But they're not fine, and fine isn't okay, right? Like fine is, it's fine, but it's not where we want the dog to be necessarily. So I'm going to pass that one on to Sarah as well.
Yeah, I think, Jen, you make a really good point. We want to think of, every dog as an individual. We want to look at the environment that they're in. I wouldn't necessarily, and I think this is a fabulous question. I don't think I would necessarily put one on the day of. Like anything, a Thunder shirt needs to be introduced properly and slowly. Some dogs get really worried about the Velcro. If it is in an environment where it's cool and the dog is, used to wearing it, I would say it can't hurt. It's not going to it's not going to cause more issues unless the dog is fearful of it, right? So compression, more so than not, I think can help a dog to relax. But I think a lot of people don't see that happening. They don't see the difference, so they assume it doesn't work. But it is used. It is used also compression with a lot of children to help reduce their stress and anxiety. And if you think of a baby, when we swaddle a baby, that's a similar effect that the Thunder shirt has on the dog. But again, Jen makes a really good point. We want to make sure that we are introducing it properly, that it's not a solve-all by any means, you know. It is just another tool to help overall reduce some stress and anxiety. But it is really helpful. We do use them at the shelter a lot with some of the really anxious dogs in it, and it does help them calm down. So every dog is an individual, so I will leave it at that.
Yeah, and Sarah also makes a few amazing points in all her statements. And I think that, you know, the Thunder shirt and other compression items, you know, they work a lot like a hug does. And when my dog is super anxious, the first thing I do is want to hug him, and that helps him. So yeah, there are some dogs who really need that, and they love that. So again, it's all individual. So back to you, Michael.
And I agree with you, Sarah and Jim, what you guys are talking about. And we talk about this all the time, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. It's like, if you are going to use one of those, you should, you know, get it. Well, you should get it now. You should buy it on Amazon today, get it in your house, and start putting it on your dog a few minutes at a time, just baby steps with them so they get used to it. So you're just not putting it on the day of and they're like, what the hell is this? With everything that we're talking about, Jen, what would be your number one safety point for people that, like you said, we've been in the pandemic this last year. We don't even know some of our dogs or where they're going to be going because they've never heard 4th of July. What would be your number one insider tip that you do for your dogs, or you would do with a new dog for the 4th of July?
Well, my goodness, keep them inside. And if you have to take them outside when there's some hikes or fireworks going on, please put them on leash and make sure that they're super safe.
Oh, you crack me up. I love you, Jen. You're so funny. My goodness. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, on top of that, I would say give them something to do, for Pete's sake. Don't just expect them to chill out and relax on their own like they might normally do. So this is not a time to be stingy, people. Go get some really extra yummy treats. Something that I had this one customer that she's like, I swear I would never buy a bully stick. And then she got a bully stick and she sent me a video, her little 16-week-old puppy. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And her puppy was chilling on her bed, just chewing away. And so this is a time to pull out some creativity, get those beef tracheas, stuff them with something yummy, freeze it. And, if you want to be extra safe, of course, make sure if you're giving them something new to be there present. Don't just drop it and go. We want to make sure we're monitoring and managing, as always, for safety. But yeah, Jen talked about all those wonderful things that you can do to give your dogs extra jobs. This is not a day to feed in a bowl. Use that food to really make sure that we're enriching them throughout the day. Jen had talked too about the training and exercise and all that stuff. This is also a great day to, I just wanted to add one more little safety item, but to engage your dog's brain a little bit more throughout the day, whether that's, a little bit of a longer walk or some extra training sessions leading up to the evening, but not to overdo it and overtire them out, because I don't know about you, but when I'm overly tired, I'm not really nice and I'm, on edge, and we don't want to leave our dogs like that either. But the other thing is, don't exercise your dog and then put him in a room or put him in a crate, because they need time also to tire, to slow down and decompress from that tiring out. So just make sure that you're giving them ample time to chill out before you leave, if you are leaving, or you're going to put them in a space. And again, if they are crate trained, use the crate if that's their safe space, but this is not a day to just put them in a confined area if they're not used to it. So back to you, Michael.
And I love that you said that about the crate, because that was one of my questions I have on my list for you, is that When they do, let's say we have our dog and we're going out for a celebration or going over for a picnic, is it good to leave them in a crate all day long? I mean, how does that work with a dog in this situation?
A crate all day long, that is never the answer.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear. So when we're talking about putting them in a crate, how, like you said, give them time to get, after they've been exercising, you've taken them for a walk, you've brought them back in the house, you're getting ready to go out for the evening. What duration of time are we talking about here?
Again, I'm going to go back to Jen's comment. Every dog is an individual, and you have to know your dog and what you've trained up to this point already, as far as being able to be confined, let alone left alone or in a space by themselves. If you are unsure, stay home. Is that party really worth needing to go to? Or find a friend to come over and watch your dog, or pet sit, or your parents. So I think that we need to be, this is a night that can be really stressful for our dogs. So it's definitely not the night you want to push the envelope. That's for sure.
To Jen, pet sitting. Do you find that a lot of people just want to just drop their dogs off during this time, or maybe for the weekend or during holidays, and you just end up with a lot of dogs? Or how do you handle that flow of dogs?
Well, because we go into people's homes, we don't have a boarding facility. We do get extra calls for the weekend for people being out of town. But typically just for 4th of July, we find that most of our clients will stay home. But for the people who travel, we definitely have plenty of stops to make in the evenings. And we have to schedule very, very carefully, because we don't just go in for an hour and take care of all the needs of the pet, like feeding and walking and, making sure that they're okay. We stay, especially on 4th of July, because we don't know how they're going to react. And especially if they're new to the household. So, we do get extra requests for 4th of July. Like, we're completely booked. We've been booked for 4th of July weekend for a couple of months. But there are some boarding facilities, local to us anyway, who do like a fireworks camp. So it's inside, noise proof, walls and ceilings, so that they don't even hear the fireworks when they're in there. And they do like little parties. So there's those facilities who are pretty amazing. If the dog, again, it goes back to the whole thing of the dog's individual. And if the dog is used to going to a facility for boarding or for daycare, why not do one of those fireworks camps? So you can go out if that's what you want to do. So, so that your dog is good, they're having fun, there's no problems, pick them up the next day, and everybody's super, super happy. So, yeah, I would do that.
And that's why I'm so impressed with you guys all the time, because you come up with these solutions that I've never heard of, like firework camp. I love that. That is so brilliant. How would someone just Google that, you think, Jen, and be able to find one successfully? Or is there a place that they can go to find something like this?
It's just it's the same as looking for a boarding facility for your dog for the weekend. Because it's a holiday too. You want to be proactive, and Sarah's all about proactivity, and it might be a little too late to get in on some of these, but any boarding facility that's local to your area, you just call them up and ask them, hey, do you guys have something special you do for the dogs on 4th of July? And see if they have space for you.
Let's talk about yards. I know a lot of people, that live in bigger spaces, they have yards, they have gates. What do we do? Do you go around and make sure all your gates, of course you do, you secure them and all that, but do you have any other tips about putting your dog in the yard? Do you put your dog in the yard? Do you just supervise your dog when in the yard? What's your thought on that, Jen?
Oh my goodness. I love this subject. So, because we are in charge of people's fur children when they're away, we absolutely have to check all the gates, all the doors, all the windows, screens, all that stuff, every single visit, even if that's 3-4 visits a day. So every single time we arrive, we're checking those gates. And if there's a gate that's questionable, we will stick a lock on it, or like a carabiner, or anything that fits through whatever that gate needs to make sure it's not coming open, unless that thing is specifically opened from the inside. So, and dog theft is on the rise too. So we always want to make sure that no matter what, whether it's a holiday like 4th of July with fireworks included, or just to protect your pets in their yard, to make sure that all gates are absolutely secure and people cannot get in and your dogs cannot get out. And that includes going around the perimeter of your yard and looking underneath. Like if you have a wood fence that's on dirt, is somebody digging in or out? Like, let's check that out. Let's make sure that that can't happen. But also for 4th of July specifically, we never let dogs out in the yard the week prior, the weekend of, and the week after, unless they're on leash or a long line. It's not unsupervised yard time at all, just because we're really in charge of those dogs. So we have to be extra, extra cautious. We're less cautious with our own dogs, which we shouldn't be, but that's kind of how it goes, right? So yeah, I would just suggest for 4th of July specifically, on leash. Especially if your dog is at all nervous about loud noises or sensitive in that area, definitely on leash in the yard for sure.
And Sarah, what about you? Because I believe you live on some land, and do you have a fence all the way around your property?
Thank goodness we do. Yeah, we're actually on 4 acres, but fortunately it's completely fenced. But as I mentioned, which is interesting, I'm not sure how that dog that ended up on my property a couple of summers ago, that she must have found a hole in the fence. I don't know. How did she get in? But she ended up on my driveway and I helped her out and she finally found her owners again. So that's good. But yeah, making sure that you are looking at, if your dog digs, don't think that they can't scale that fence. They can jump, they can climb. If they are in a state of panic, they can do really, the impossible. I mean, it's really kind of crazy how stressed that they can get. So I also just want to say, make sure you even watch your windows. If you're going to put your dog in a room, make sure those windows are closed, and doors aren't left unopened. Some dogs are really smart with being able to open screens. I've had dogs jump through screens and windows. So we just, you might not think it's going to be your dog, and then before you know it, there you are. So, and that leads us back to making sure your ID and everything is up to date. I also want to share this amazing feedback I got from my client who says she puts this awesome sign in her front yard that says, "Please be considerate. There is somebody in the neighborhood that's fearful of fireworks." And so if you swipe down, I changed my profile picture. You can't really see the entire thing. But again, it says, "Please be considerate. Someone in your neighborhood is afraid of fireworks." So that's taking it to the next level. I love this. Why not put a sign on your front lawn that lets people know that you've got a dog in the house that is sensitive and needs to be safe. And worst case scenario, we talked about this with the fire safety, having information on your window that you've got so many dogs in your house. That's also can go back to that as far as an extra tip for keeping your dogs safe on the 4th of July.
And the windows are important to be closed for 2 things, right? One, for them not to be able to escape out of it, but also to help block some of the noise.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the drapes down, the windows closed. Exactly. You want to close them for safety as well as to drown out all of those noises and the lights, because sometimes those lights flashing from the fireworks adds to it. It can be pretty daunting for a dog.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think that we need to talk about, Sarah, about safety? You keep bringing up this dog that showed up on your driveway, and then I just asked you about if your yard was fenced in, and you said yes, but somehow he got in. Do you think he jumped into your yard? I mean, because that's what we're talking about here, safety. So it just shows that even you had a breach to your fence.
I had a breach. Yeah. We have coyotes too, and those things, they climb, they scale. And this was a large Doberman. I wouldn't put it past her that she scaled the fence and got out of her yard and into mine. So yeah, absolutely. And this isn't something that should be done once a year, right? We should make sure that we're walking our property and checking our fence for loose boards or holes underground or access to being able to jump onto a wall and climb over, things like that. I will say, you asked if there's anything else specifically. I will say, if you believe that your dog is just not going to be able to handle and is going to be in a state of panic, it is a good time right now. You still have time. I would reach out to your veterinarian and talk to them about additional solutions, whether that's something natural over the counter or something medicinal that's going to help allow them to just have a situational support mechanism for the day of. And check out, Amazon and things for those front yard signs. You can find some things like that, or the thunder shirts, or all the different puzzles and things that Jen and I discussed today, because there are really a lot of wonderful tools out there to help aid in supporting our dog to be calm.
There's no more drama, which has been working for Ryder. So thank you.
There's no more drama. You got it.
But yeah, so we have, one of my companies is Healthy Paws Herbal Labs, and we have 9 formulas, and one of them is called No More Drama, if you guys aren't familiar in the room of it. And it's all holistic. It's based on Chinese recipes from ancient Chinese, herbs that they've been using for centuries. And we have one called No More Drama. It's calming. And it's really remarkable because, I don't always get to see our clients or see how it's working with our clients. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a client call me up and ask me, her dog had been through surgery. He had one of those cones on and he just kept banging around the whole house. And she's like, what can I do? What can we do? And I'm like, well, check out our No More Drama. Maybe it'll take that edge off of him from him just being anxious with having that cone on his head. And she's like, okay. So she purchased the No More Drama, and she lived right around the corner. So I drove it over to her just to show her what it was and how it worked. And I gave the dog the dosage that was on the side of the box. And I was like so in love with our product once again, because within 20 minutes her dog was down on the bed, his dog bed, just relaxing, chilling out. And they both, the husband and the wife, looked at each other and they're like, oh my God, he hasn't stopped for 2 days. And this is the first time he stopped. And so what, like Sarah's saying, is like, you want to, if you're going to reach out for something like this, like No More Drama, you need to order it today. Get it inside your house. We even say do baby steps with it as well, so your dog gets used to it. So you just don't throw it on them the day of and all of a sudden they're calm and they're like, what's going on here? You want them to get used to it. Make sure that when you do go to your vet, you understand what your vet is giving them, because a lot of times vets, they'll give you a pharmaceutical, which is like a Valium or some sort of like, antidepressant or something like that for your dog. But you have to understand what that does for your dog. It calms them, but it also takes away their motor skills. And that's what's nice about our product, is that it doesn't take away their motor skills. So if there isn't an emergency and they need to get up and run out of the house, they'll be alert, which is so beautiful with our product. So always be aware of what you're getting, what you're giving your dog, and really setting your dog up to win. What else, Jen? What else can we do?
Well, I think that, we covered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
and I just, the last thing I think, and Sarah and I, we were texting about this, I think it was just yesterday, if there's no possible way for you to escape the fireworks in your own neighborhood, there's no harm in going somewhere else. There's no harm in maybe, booking a hotel for a couple of nights and just having a vacation right around the corner, or in the next town over, or, make it like a weekend for you and your pet to just chill out somewhere where they really, really like, and there's no fireworks in that area that you know of. So that's always another option, is to just get out of town, just go, right?
Yeah, I love that. Take your dog on a play date.
All about safety, right? Like, depending on where you go, like I just always want to include that, because I don't want to give the impression that I'm saying, oh yeah, go camping at the beach where there's a fireworks show in the next beach, right?
Right.
So yeah, being careful always, right?
Yeah, so really be selective. Sarah, what about you? Anything else that you can think of?
Well, I do know that, sometimes some families will get like the sparklers or the little piccolo peeps or whatever it's called, things like that, right? Some places sell them, some places sell them illegally. It just depends where you live. Even though these are not in the sky fireworks and all crazy, crazy, crazy loud, although the piccolo Pete is, oh my gosh, my little terrier would go crazy with that sound. I want you guys to all understand that, those little things can be still scary for your dog. And so make sure that you are still recognizing that you're going to have that, little bit of fun with your family or yourself or your kids or whatever it looks like, but keep your dog away. Give him a chew in the other room and go out onto the driveway and have your fun. This is not a time to wave a sparkler in your dog's face. So just want to say that as far as just, the local in the house fireworks stuff.
Well, you have boys, don't you?
I do. Yes. And we have those things, and our dog is nowhere near when we do them.
I'm sure they're all excited for 4th of July, and they're like, let's get this, let's get these. Yeah. So you have your hands full, not with just your dogs, but your boys as well. I love it. So Jen, I'm going to go back to you again. We talked about the jackets or the thunder shirts and all that. You were kind of like up in the air about because they get hot and all that. Would you wrap them up in a blanket? How would you make them comfortable? What would be your thing to make them comfortable?
Depends on the dog. I have a dog who does not like blankets. He gets very, very hot. This is Vinny. He would rather go and work out in another room and get that nervous energy out and just use it physically. Ryder, my middle child, he's the one who has really bad anxiety at times, and he just had a moment yesterday for probably about 4-hour long anxiety attack, and he has to be covered in a blanket or he's not going to recover. So that's a little different. And he has to have contact with either me or his therapy dog, Beans, who's my 9.5-year-old dog. And then Beans, she doesn't get nervous about anything. But if she does, it's going to be a bird flying over her head because she's kind of scared of birds and squirrels. So if something like that flies over her head, she doesn't need to be covered or hugged. She prefers not to be hugged and touched. She would rather just look at it and be next to me and be touching me with her body on her terms. So again, it's super individual. All this stuff that we're talking about is really up to the individual dog to decide what's going to make them feel better. And then it's our job to just understand what we're looking at, right? So body language and how they're acting and all of the big picture of what the dog's doing, that will give us a clue about what we can do to help them, right? So if a dog is coming close to you and kind of huddling or cowering next to your legs or trying to get up on the couch and sit with you, well, you know what? Let's cuddle them. Let's cuddle that dog. But if a dog is, pulling on leash, trying to get away from whatever's scaring them, like Beans does with the birds, that's not the best idea to go and grab them. So again, very individual.
And, you guys kill me all the time by saying this because you're like, oh, it's individual to the dog. And I'm like, well, we're talking about dogs and I wanted general information. But no, I totally understand that because dogs, just like us, they all have their own personalities. So it's really important that you know your dog and you know who your dog is today because they change just like we do and they get older and they have personalities adjust and all that. So always have that connection with your dog. Sarah, Jen, anything else, since we're at the top of the hour, anything else you want to close the room with?
Take some of these tips and maybe if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so much information, pick 1, 2, 3 things and really write them down and commit to getting them taken care of before the 4th of July. You still have some time. Might be shopping on Amazon for a yard sign or buying a new puzzle for your dog or putting a call in to you, Michael, or your vet. So pick a few and don't wait. Don't wait.
Yeah, beautiful. Jen?
Yeah, and I agree with Sarah. Pick the things that are going to be doable, right? And the things that you need to take action on now, like ordering from you or, scheduling that fireworks camp. If your dog if you feel like you want to go out and you can't leave your dog at home because you don't feel like they'd be safe enough, call around now. See if you can get them into fireworks camp if they're good at a daycare or a boarding facility in the past, then that would be a good option. So doing the things that you need to do on a schedule, I guess you can say. So calling Michael is number 1, and then calling a boarding facility is number 2, and just going down the list of things that you think that would be useful for your dog and your household. I think just start down the list and start tackling them. And when you're working on the things that that you might want to utilize to keep your dog busy, start doing the simple ones now. Get them used to those things. And so that when the 4th of July is there, that they're already comfortable with chewing and licking and foraging and going into that enrichment box and all that kind of stuff, now, so that they get used to it if they're not already. And that they're not going to be, oh, here's another new thing. After I hear a firework, now you expect me to do this? I don't think so, ladies. So, just making sure that they're comfortable with all the things that you are offering them for comfort. Make sure it is comforting to them, or just skip it. So that's my best advice for you.
I think that's exactly right, is make sure it's comforting for them. Even though you may think it is for you, it may not be for them. And I love that. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for hosting this room with me today. Jen, Sarah, you guys are always wonderful here in the room. And everybody that's joined us in our room today, sat back and listened to us have this conversation. I do on my website, Healthy Paws Herbal Labs, under our blogs, we do have 8 tips to keep your pet safe for the holiday, for 4th of July, and we pretty much covered all 8 backwards and forwards. So it is there. If you wanted to go for a printed copy, you can actually look at it, share it with somebody. With that, once again, thank you for joining us. I'm Michael with The Journey, and we had Sarah and Jen here co-hosting with us today in our topic of 4th of July dog safety tips. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Michael, and I'm out.
Thank
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.